Good day, it's Arno Klaasen against here, and we're still busy with the series, what I call my gospel series. Today is actually the second video, but it's actually the beginning of the story, and in this session is the first 13 years of my life that I can maybe call the pre-gospel period, because in this period I didn't know Jesus Christ. I was really not knowing what was actually going on in life. But it's actually a very important part of your life because it's the first 13 years of my life. So to give you just a little bit of background, what happened in my life is that, of course, I was birthed, as any other person, and I can't remember it, as most people can't remember their birth. But the important part of my birth maybe was the fact that I arrived, number one, and number two, that I've got a name. And I got the names of my grandfather on my mother's side, and I'm actually Arnoldus Gillis Klaasen. So this is a creation purpose painting made by my wife Marianne Klaasen. That's actually portraying my creative purpose, everything my names is saying, and all this stuff together. Now the important thing is, I never thought about that name. A name was so important. 30 years later on the road, I realized, that I became what my names are. I'm just living my names, I thought initially, okay, this is the names of my grandfather, it's just like, it's emotional, we just call it because of that. But I don't knew my grandfather because he died before I was born. But I am literally living my names. And maybe to show the word Arnoldus means eagle ruler, and that's where the eagle is coming from. It's eagle ruler, to rule over things, to bring order, to bring sense into something, to give it direction. That's what the eagle is standing for. Long time after that, I realized actually for the first time what the name Gillis means. It means to be a shield for other people. That's where it's coming from. It's to be a shield for people that cannot protect themselves, to help them. So it's got a sense of justice and righteousness in it, and to help people that can't help themselves and living in an injustice situation. So maybe to show you the rest of this picture, is that my life is eventually end up. So we're looking now back to what happened in my life, but this is the beginning, that there is a road of righteousness. My life started to unfold around the righteousness. It's me, my family, breaking bread. It's me writing books. It's all about entrance into the presence of the Father. It's about the rod of righteousness. And into the presence of God, and the road, and all these things will as time passes by, we'll get to that. My creative biblical verse, if you can say it was, is all that verse of scripture in Isaiah that's saying that I will be rebuilding the walls and bringing back the peace and making it livable for people again. Okay, so that is a big picture of my life, but I am actually Arnoldus Gillis, and this is what my creation purpose is all about. But remember, at that stage I knew nothing about it. I actually found it out maybe 30 years after that. To be a little bit about my family, my father was born in George, and I was raised in Hoopstad, a little small town in the Free State. My mother came from Tweeling, little town in the Free State, and they met on Frankfurt, where my father was in the correctional service. I was born in Frankfurt, and then we moved to Hoopstad. I can remember one thing of Frankfurt, and that was basically the prison and the house that we were staying in. So for the first 5 years of my life, I can really not remember a lot of things. As normally people do. The main thing that's standing out of the first 5 years of my life that I can maybe mention is the fact that I always remember, it was a problem for me going to school because I was a person that was wetting my bed, always till a late age, I mean before 5, I don't remember precisely where. But I believe it is because I didn't know at that stage, but I was born a very sensitive person, emotionally very sensitive. I was very insecure in myself. I couldn't understand things. I couldn't figure out things for myself. So I was very insecure in myself, and I can't pinpoint and just say, this is because of that person, this, or whatever, because this world is a very insecure place, and you can pick it up even though you are maybe only a child. But being insecure in myself was a very big thing in my life from the starting point, and I could conquer it along the way, as you see it, but it was something that I had a real battle with. Then my primary school was nothing, let's say, there was nothing real bad or real good, or what you call normal primary school. We came out of St. Rounding, where it's a farm community. It's a town that's built around a farm community. And the one thing I always remember about my primary school is the fact that, always when we went out to play, soccer and rugby, it was always the farm people against the town people, And don't know how things happened, but always there was some sort of fight, some sort of disagreement. And then always I was the representative for the town people because of this thing that I didn't realize at that stage. The moment there's something that's not right, I'm just stepping forward. I can't stop myself. I'm just stepping forward. The moment something is not right, I step to the forefront. Although I was at the background, the most of my primary school, I was a loner. I was on the background. I was not part of the group actually. But the moment there was something wrong, I was on the forefront. I was standing in for other people. I couldn't help myself. Always battling the fights of other people, and finding myself, that people are angry with me about things. I wasn't even involved in. Maybe I wasn't even there. It became a big problem later on in a church situation that I will show you later, where I was always fighting the battles for other people and church leaders, battles that I was not even involved in, but ending up always as the bad guy, and I was not even involved in it at all. So I can remember this very vivid, so there was always a fight, and if it couldn't be solved, peacefully, there was a fight after school between me and the representative of the other side, and I always came home with clothes torn, and I was always in a fight. Not that I liked it. I liked it at no ways. I don't think anyone liked it actually, but that was the part of the way I actually was raised. I was involved a little bit in rugby, a little bit in athletics, as a primary school. There's not very much, it's just maybe the 100 meter or something. So you involved in, but not much of a sporty type of person. As I said, I'm a loner. I was a loner. If I could sit on my own, I was very happy myself, because I was constantly thinking. My personality, as I found out, is a person that's living to the inside and always thinking about things, trying to make sense of what is going on, trying to process everything that's happening in my life. Socially, it is very important to realize, as I said, it's a rural town. It's all about farming, and it's a small town. My father, as I said, was in the correctional service, and we lived next door to the prison. The prison was like 2 meters from the house. There was actually no barrier between the prison and the house. We lived all together, sort of, with the prisoners. They were on the yard, and that was also our yard, and so I had lots of conversations with them. I was good friends with the prisoners. I will come back to that later on, also in my story. I was never against, in my heart, I would say I was never a racist. I was never looking down on black people. I was sort of their friend, I just opened up my eyes, and here I was amongst them, and they were the criminals, and for me that wasn't the issue. I respected them and they respected me, and I was living amongst them. We never had an incident of any kind. They were all around our house, and there was even one assigned to our house, and that was nice, because you could ask him to polish your shoes, and help you to fix the bicycle and all these things. And and that was for me a very good aspect of being, you know, getting raised amongst these colored people or other colors of races or whatever. It was a very good thing. We were living not very far from the river, about a kilometer, you know, in the downtown, in a certain sense, you know, and the town developed to the northern side, because where we stayed was within the flood line of the river. I remember the river once came just to the street just below us. Was never other problems, but the river was very nice, you know. I had a very best friend through my primary years, and we always played there at the river. He stayed actually right on top, you know, and it was one of the things, you know, to drive and with the bicycles from the top to the bottom of town without touching a handle, you know, going over the main road and you know, everything. It was real risky, I remember, but you know, it was one of those things. You don't stop, you just wrangle your bicycle without touching anything, any handle. We built ourselves boats, and we were on the river, and canoes and lots of things, and I was never really a fishing guy, but the river was a very nice thing. But this very good friend of mine, he went to Bloemfontein on high school, so this was my primary years. I remember, you know, also that the church was in the middle of the town. You know, the church was the everything, you know. The most important person in the church was the dominee. Actually, he was the most important church in town. He's got sort of, you know, non-officially, he was the guy with the last say, you know. Everyone was respecting the dominee. You know, if you haven't lived in those days, you will not really know how serious that really was, you know. If the dominee only sort of suggested, that was the Dutch Reformed Church, if the dominee sort of just suggested something, you know, from the pulpit, you know, it was sort of a law, you know, in town, because that was just as it were. I mean, that's the way of life. Nowadays it's totally different. It's lots of other churches and stuff, and even the whole church situation is in a big sense falling apart. But that was just the way. Something that always bothered me was, why was the children of the dominee, you know, always the naughtiest children in town? I couldn't understand that. That was something that was hindering me always, you know. I always thought that that's not supposed to be like that, but in our town it was very much like that. And that was one sort of the things. I remember of those days, very important, that I was always asking questions, always thinking about things. Because that is part of my creative purpose, is to find answers in life. My whole life unfolded as a person that was looking for answers, and I received my answers up till today. On all the questions, basically, you know, that's primary questions in life. I don't know everything, to be sure. But on the primary things, I've received my answers from the Lord. But I remember from early on, I was always asking questions. I was also asking, why is things like this? Why is this school? Why, you know, why are children behaving like this? Why are parents, teachers behaving like this? You know, why this whole church thing and all the problems connecting to it? I couldn't find answers. It started to develop in a depression. Even in my primary years, I started to feel depressed about this. I wasn't at that stage not really in a depression, but it started to develop from there, because the question just became more, and the answers are not there, you know, and it's like a burden that's on your shoulders, and you don't see light, and your life just become more dark and dark because of all this unanswered questions in your own life. And so that was a main point in my life. I remember all these questions, you know. One of the very big things in my life, you know, is that the fact that I never that I can think of, except when it was inevitable. I think maybe once we went to a funeral of my grandmother. I never missed any school day, and I never missed any church service. It was like, that is the normal, that is the standard. For me it was like that, you know. And in looking for answers, I hope to find my answers in church. Unfortunately, I never found my answers in church at that stage of my life, in the primary years, 0 to 13. But I never missed anything. I was always hoping to find my answers, and yet at that stage I couldn't find my answers. And my life became very dark, much more depressed, and with no light in sight. Maybe I forgot to tell that I've got a brother, an older brother, and an older sister, and we're only 3 children, and I'm the youngest. And maybe there was some privileges to that in home, being the youngest, being the last in the home. But that is just one of the things. Okay, so this is round about what was my years. Nothing very strange, nothing very abnormal in a negative or in a positive side. I've got good memories, if you can say it like that. I just haven't received my answers. I found myself starting to operate in a way that was sort of my personality and my creative purpose, but not knowing what was going on. And it brought me into a corner where I was uneasy with it, because I couldn't handle it, I couldn't get out of it, I couldn't make sense out of all these things that was happening in my primary school years. That was not maybe major things, but together it became like a squeezing into a corner, and you don't see light out of this corner. It just became darker and more tighter, and not knowing anything how it's all about. So this is my pre-gospel phase. That's what happened in my life before I get to know the Lord from there on. Thank you very much.